How much weight did I add to my Tacoma with the new spare tire setup? Well, good morning everybody. How are you today? Pretty good here, and I wanted to find out how much weight did I add to my Tacoma with the new spare tire setup. Now, you guys can see, if you didn't see the previous videos, I added the RCI bed rack, and then of course I mounted a bigger tire and a wheel up on top, obviously. Now, this is of course heavier than the spare tire setup. So I thought it would be interesting, and I have to take the spare tire off anyway. I mean, I'm not going to haul around both. Although I would say that, you know, if you're going off-roading somewhere and you have this kind of a setup, you could use that spare tire as an extra or a backup in case for some crazy reason you blew 2 tires while you were out. So something to think about maybe. But anyway, I am going to go ahead and pull the spare off of here. No reason for me to haul that around, just in normal daily driving. And then we're going to go ahead and plop it over here on the scale. Going to check and see how much it weighs, and then compare it to the new bigger tire that I have up here on the rack, just to see how much extra weight I actually did add to my Tacoma with this new spare tire setup. So let's go ahead and pull the spare off. There, we've got the spare tire off. Now I'll pull it out of there, we'll put it on a scale, see what it weighs. Okay, real quick before we put it on the scale, I've got it up against the other tire. Let's just take a quick look at the size comparison. You guys can see here, it is a little bit lower. There, that might give you a better idea, maybe a better angle. A little bit lower, or a little bit narrower. It is a 265/70 R16, whereas what I have on there is a 285/70 R17. So the wheel's a little bit smaller, and the tire itself is maybe an inch or so, something like that, shorter. All right, let's go over, put it on the scale and see what we've got. Okay, there you go on the scale. It weighs 61.5 pounds. 61.5 pounds. That thing's pretty heavy. Actually, the total weight of my new tire setup, in other words, the spare that's up there on top, is 82 pounds. Now, what that equates to, I guess, is the weight of the wheel itself, and those are Fuel Enduro wheels. They weigh 28 pounds apiece. And then the Goodyear Duratrax, and they're a 285/70 R17, they weigh 54 pounds apiece. So that's how we come up with the total of 82 pounds. Now, that means that the current setup that I have, the additional spare, I guess, weighs 21.5 pounds more than the OEM spare did. So I've added 21.5 pounds just in the spare alone. Now, what about the rack? Of course, I have the rack up there that I added. You guys can see right there. And we do have to account for that weight if we're looking at additional weight for what I've put on the truck so far. That rack weighs 60 pounds. So I added a total, without taking into account the spare, of 142 pounds. Now, since we did remove the spare, we have to remove that from the equation, right? And what that leaves us with then is an additional 81.5 pounds. So after taking the spare off and then adding my new spare and wheel and bed rack, I guess, to the truck, in essence I've added 81.5 pounds to the truck. Now, what you have to take into account there, I guess, is that, you know, the truck is rated for X number of pounds for hauling capacity, you know, what you can throw in the bed. And of course, when the manufacturer rates that truck, they take into account the spare tire, obviously. So what I've done, in essence, is reduced the hauling capacity of my truck by 81.5 pounds. you know, there is some tolerance built into these weights anyway, so I'm not real concerned about that. And to be honest, if I want to haul something else, I'll use the Gladiator up there, because this truck is being set up as my bug out truck. I've mentioned that before, and I think part of having a bug out truck is having a reliable spare tire if you need it, right? I mean, in extreme circumstances, you wouldn't want to throw something on there a different size that your life may depend on, and not use the same size spare, at least in wheel diameter size. And you could see that, I should say tire diameter size, and you could see that the OEM spare was smaller by about an inch, maybe inch and a half, somewhere in that range, of what the aftermarket setup that I have on the truck is. So I feel much more confident having what I have on there now than just leaving it set up with that OEM spare underneath to just limp somewhere if I needed to. Now, one other thing we're going to have to deal with, and I'll have to figure out what to do with that, of course, is the carrier underneath. You can see it dangling around under there. You know, and it's funny, I don't know if you guys have ever noticed, but I've seen trucks driving around where they've taken the spare off for some reason. Either they needed to use it or it was stolen. Who knows what might have happened. And they just leave that thing down there like that, dangling around. I mean, that's crazy. I always envision it catching on something. You know, you drive over something on the road and it catches on that thing, and now you're dragging, I don't know what, behind you, a box or who knows, whatever it might be. But I always think of that when I see somebody driving around with their spare tire carrier thing, you know, the chain that's underneath there, dangling around. So I'm going to have to do something with that. Honestly, I don't know if you can pull it all the way up and not have it still dangle under there. In other words, tighten it all the way up against its own assembly. But I think even if you do that, that extra chain, which looks to be about, oh, maybe 1.5 feet, pushing 2 feet, about 1.5 feet, still has to come down somewhere on the other side, right? I mean, I think the way the thing works is the chain comes up, loops around, and then comes down, and that pulls the tire up as you go. So you still have that extra chain hanging around, and I honestly don't want the sound and the noise and stuff from that dangling around down there. So I think the answer for me is probably to take that off. Not really a bad idea, because I have toyed with the idea, and I don't know that I'll do this, but I have toyed with the idea of actually mounting that bracket that holds that spare tire carrier underneath on my rack here, and then using the same mechanism, if you will, to raise the tire up underneath the bed rack here. The only problem in doing that, of course, is that if I did, you guys can see the width of this tire, right? If I did, I would then be blocking the window again, which I know a lot of you folks out there had a big problem with. And to be honest, I wasn't real hip on that myself. So that's the other issue I have, that if I did mount it underneath and then pull it up, I would still be blocking that window. And then, of course, also the possibility, should it ever break loose, of creating a projectile that is sitting right in front of that window. So you know, if it broke loose, like say you stop suddenly, you know, that tire is traveling at the same speed you are, and if it's not held down properly, it's going to shoot out like a missile, right? And if it does that underneath, it's of course going to go right through that back window. And obviously, I don't want that to happen. So I could secure it probably with a couple of, well, with maybe just one other of these little rope things that I have up there, and that probably would be enough. So I don't know if that's a big deal for me as much as maybe losing visibility would be. Anyway, I just wanted to get on here, kind of give you guys an idea of what the weight increase was for the setup that I have on the truck right now. I will tell you, I do love this setup. I like the way it looks. I like the functionality of it. I like that the tire is not behind the window anymore. And I think it's pretty slick. I just think it looks pretty darn cool on the truck, to be quite honest. Aesthetically, I find it very pleasing. Anyway, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think of the additional weight I've added to the truck. Of course, reducing its hauling capacity. Does that make a difference? 80 some pounds? I don't know. Also, real quick, if you haven't before and you're interested, check out my other channel. It is RobMotive JT, all about my 2020 Jeep Gladiator, resting comfortably right up there. Don't forget to click that notification bell so that you don't miss out on any upcoming videos. And do me a favor, smash that subscribe button on the way out. Thanks for watching. Stay safe out there. Bye.